Faux, snugs, pros, cons. Buy a piercer. Going to give you 5 of each. Also going to talk about what you should know before getting it done, or what you should consider getting the piercing done, healing the piercing, living with the piercing, and jewelry, and what happens if you don't want it anymore. Coming up next on Pros and Cons by a Piercer, Season 2, Episode number 84. For those who are new to the channel, welcome to the Body Piercing and Tattooing channel. For those that are coming back, welcome back. But for those that haven't been here before, they may not know who I am. My name is DaVo. I'm a professional body piercer and have been since 1994. I own and operate the Axiom Body Piercing Studio, located right here in Des Moines, Iowa, inside Skin Kitchen Tattoo. Now, we're going to talk about a piercing called a faux snug. Now, when we say faux, it is something that appears like or looks like a snug, but isn't one. And I think to really understand it, you need to know what a snug piercing is. A snug piercing goes through this tissue right here. Some of us have like a large ridge right in this area, and that is what it goes through. A faux rook is going to be a piercing that is in this area and then down in this area to create the illusion that the jewelry passes through this ridge, when reality is it's 2 separate piercings. A lot of times people don't have the anatomy to do a snug, and a faux rook is a better option. The other reason why we do these is they're less traumatic. Snug piercings are notorious for how long heals and all kinds of other problems, so this makes for a much easier heal and less traumatic, and we can do them on a lot more people. As far as history and etc., this is a completely modern piercing. There's no like tribal connections or anything else that you need to worry about or know about. This is something that came about, I would say, in the last 10 years. It's fairly new. I'm sure somebody did it long before that, but as far as combining these 2 piercings and go, yeah, it looks like a snug, though we'll call it the faux snug, that's a new thing. Let's move on to the pros, the advantages, the things that make you say, yes, I should have that in my life. Starting with number 1. Can be done if you don't have the anatomy for a snug. Kind of already covered this. This is something that if you don't have that ridge that's really pronounced right there, that you can get it, and you want it, you can get it done, and it's going to look a lot like a snug. And, you know, most people won't be wise to it. Number 2, widely socially acceptable. This isn't a piercing that is going to trip anybody's trigger or make them go, ooh, gross. It's more of an acceptable piercing. It's easy to hide. It's not going to affect a lot of things that you do in your daily life, unlike other piercings, which are a lot more visible and a lot more kind of out there. And number 3, there is a wide variety of different types of jewelry you can put in this. If you do this with threadless or threaded, there's a lot of different ends you can put on this jewelry. It's usually done with a flat back labret, and then the fronts, you can have gem settings, you can have balls, you can have shaped objects, you can have all kinds of fun stuff. Number 4, long history of healing. Basically, you're doing a conch piercing and you're doing a helix piercing. Both of those piercings have a long history of healing. With little or no problems, sometimes a little bit more, some of them are a little touchy, and we'll get into all that later. However, for the most part, if you take care of these, isolate them, they're going to heal. Number 5, this combination or grouping of piercings is probably going to heal a lot easier than a traditional snug piercings. Snug piercings are one of the piercings that are just notorious for never healing or never completely healing or rejecting. These 2 piercings don't have as many issues as that. So your chances of healing this out is going to be much easier and less likely to be a problem than it would be with a traditional snug. Now let's move on to the cons. The disadvantages, the things that make you go, no, I don't need that in my life. Number 1, this grouping of piercings, because of their location on the ear, we'll hold up the ear example, this thing, this area of the ear gets a lot of contact, especially when you're sleeping. It can be hard to isolate this during the healing process. It can be hard to isolate this after the healing process. So that's a disadvantage. Number 2, second con, cost. Because we're using two separate pieces of jewelry and doing two separate piercings, depending on how the payment structure that your piercer has set up, it may cost more than a traditional snug would. It's two separate piercings. You're getting twice the things, so it can cost up to double the price. Number 3, both of these piercings can close quickly. You do need to leave that jewelry in. You do need to make that commitment. It's not something you can just take the jewelry out and leave it out for a couple months and put back in, even after the piercings are well healed. So, can close quickly. Number 4, may not be able to sleep on this grouping of piercings even after the piercings have healed. Because of the location and because it's hard metal through soft tissue and just the sensitivity of the area that these are known for, both conch piercings and helix piercings, sleeping on that area may not be something you'll be able to do without having soreness and other issues long after the piercing is healed. And number 5, kind of already talked about this and it's kind of doubling down, but sensitivity to trauma. These piercings don't like to be messed with even after they heal, especially during the healing process. And I'll get into this. They're both notorious in that location with helixes and conches in general are notorious for being extremely sensitive to even slight pressure or contact, to the point where they look fine one day and then the next day they're terrible. So I kind of need to reinforce this. You do need to isolate this piercing. It's not as bad as a snug's going to be, but it is definitely more than both of these piercings would be by themselves. Preparing and what you should know. First off, if you're employed or in any type of activities where a dress code is involved, I would check with your employer or whoever's in charge of those activities. Things like sports, cheerleading, what have you. If you're deciding to go into the military, you need to check ahead before you get these piercings done, because nothing is worse than having to take the jewelry out and abandon the piercing, not because you want to, but because you have to. Make that choice between doing something maybe that you love or having the jewelry or having the piercings. The second thing is you need to find a piercer that's well experienced with doing this type of piercing grouping, is experienced, professional, makes you feel comfortable, is willing to educate you on the piercings, on how to take care of them, very open and willing to answer questions regardless of what they are, and be there to support you even after the piercing is done, healed, and etc., with things like jewelry changes and suggestions on jewelry and etc. Also, they should be able to easily evaluate your anatomy and know whether or not this piercing, your anatomy, is suitable for this set of piercings. That's something that you only learn through experience and doing this for a long period of time and being able to kind of read how that jewelry is going to sit and how it's going to heal. Jewelry should be biocompatible and of high quality. Best option on this always is going to be titanium or solid 14-karat nickel-free gold. Anything below that, stainless steel, maybe you don't have a problem with nickel or whatever you could get by with, but the reality is, if given the option, titanium's a better, and we'll get a little more into jewelry later. Cross-contamination prevention. You're going to need to change the way you do things for at least the period of time it's going to take for these two piercings to heal. That's going to be changes in possibly how you sleep, how you bathe, how you your hygiene, etc. You should be willing and able to make that commitment. And when the piercer goes through the consultation, they should bring up those things. Next, you should consider that it's going to take up to a year in some cases for these two piercings to heal. Everybody's a little different, heals quicker or slower, but this does take a long-term commitment. This is not something that's going to heal out in a couple of weeks. It may act like it's healed in 2 weeks, but it's not going to heal completely for 2 weeks, and you have to stay diligent with the aftercare. It is a commitment. Jewelry will likely need to be downsized at some point to a shorter post. If your piercer doesn't bring this up, talk to them about it. We put in longer jewelry, especially whenever we do piercings with posts, to allow for swelling, and downsizing needs to be done usually in about 6 to 8 weeks to something shorter to reduce migration or changing of the angles, and also to cut down on the amount of contact and movement that jewelry has. which can lead to problems. Because of the location of the conch and where it's located on the ear, it may affect whether or not you can wear earbuds, earplugs, or anything that goes into your ear canal. It really depends on the shape of your ear and the size of your ear and the instrument or what you're using. Also, it's going to affect definitely wearing over-the-ear headphones, possibly hats, helmets, definitely. These things should probably be avoided until the piercing is completely healed or at least strenuously disinfected between usage. Now let's talk about the piercing experience. Most people say on a scale of 1 to 10, these can lie between about a 2 and a 6. There's kind of a broad range on these, just basically because some people tend to be a little bit more sensitive in that area. Though I've done conches on people in the past that say that it's less painful than a helix, and I've done helixes on people in the past, and they said it was less painful than their conch. So it's always a little bit different. We're all wired a little different, but it's not going to be the best experience you ever had, but you can definitely live through it. First off and foremost, what we do is we go through a consultation, and that consultation will cover things like healing time, cross-contamination prevention, jewelry selection, evaluating your anatomy to make sure that we can do the piercing. All those things are done during that consultation. We're going to give you options on what jewelry we feel works best. Listen to your piercer. Don't be one of those people that goes in and goes, I'll only do it if I get this type of jewelry. First off, most piercers will go, well, the door's right over there. You're welcome to leave. But some piercers, even the best ones, will go, I haven't done anything all day today, and I kind of want to do this piercing, so I'll do it with that just because it's going to make this client happy. Really, there's very specific things that you need to do to get these piercings to heal correctly, and one of them is having the correct jewelry. Waiver. This is usually a release form, usually kind of a questionnaire where we go through things like if you're on any medication, do you have any pre-existing health conditions, how old you are, your age, your date of birth, all that stuff that we need legally and also to kind of get a clear understanding. If you do have pre-existing conditions, medical conditions, that are listed, you need to consult your doctor before getting the piercing done. Usually most piercers, if they have a basic idea of what is going to be a problem and not a problem, but you definitely need to discuss that. Don't hide those things from us because that could be dangerous and could affect how well the piercing heals. Worst case scenario is something could happen during the piercing, actual piercing, that will require additional medical personnel, emergency services, that kind of thing. Nobody willingly wants to be in that situation. So if you're on that borderline with things, talk to your doctor first. After we got that all done, what the piercer will do is set up the area, disinfect the piercing area once they've got all their tools set up and ready to go. Then we'll mark the piercings. Marking is always a collaborative effort. They're going to place it where they think it looks best, and then have you take a look at it, give them your insight into how your vision is on it and whether or not there is adjustments that need to be made. Because once they're marked and you're in the position to get pierced, there's not really much you can do to change the placement of that jewelry. If you wear glasses that wrap around the ear, usually these don't really impact that, but it's a good idea if you do wear them on a regular basis to bring them with you and try them on after the marking's been done, just to verify that they're not going to have contact with the piercings. Next up, the piercing is pushed through, and then a guide pin pushes the needle out, and the jewelry's hooked onto the needle, and then pushed back through, and then the ends are put on. Then we repeat it again because there's two piercings. Then after that, usually there might be a little bit of slight bleeding that we will try to stop if any is occurring. Clean up the area. There might be some throbbing and aching immediately afterwards. That usually lasts a few minutes, and it's definitely going to be tender to the touch. And the thing about tender to the touch is it isn't a sign of whether or not a piercing is healed. It's basically your body training you to keep things away from it and stop messing with it. It's kind of like, hey, man, I'm working here. Leave me alone. Let me do my job. So just because it doesn't hurt to touch it doesn't mean it's healed. Remember, the jewelry is going to be loose fitting on purpose to allow for swelling. It might look a little goofy right now, and it's going to look a lot better once you go to that shorter jewelry when you're ready to downsize. Now let's move on to healing. Average healing time on these, I would say 3 to 12 months. It's a broad range. Everybody heals differently. Usually one will heal faster than the other one. In most cases, in my experience, the conch heals faster than the helix. I'm going to suggest cleaning twice daily using a sterile saline spray. Personal favorite and what we stock here at the shop is Neomed's Piercing Aftercare. You can find it. There's an affiliate link below, and there's also going to be one of those tags that come out here where you can click on it, and it'll take you right there to buy it. If you, I will say that that's usually more expensive than the affiliate link. Anyway, if you can't find that, or you don't want to purchase it online, or you can't find it in your part of the country or world, you can use other products. The main things you want to look for are that it is in a steel pressurized can. It should be labeled sterile. When you turn it over on the back, when you look at ingredients, you should only see purified water and sodium chloride. Nothing else. If it has anything else, that is not what you want, especially preservatives, because that probably means it's not sterile at all. Now, the way to use that is if you have the kind that comes down to fine mist, is just mist both piercings, let them stay in contact for 5 minutes, let them air dry, or you know, if there's excess, you can pat it dry. If you have the kind that comes out like a squirt gun, like a super sucker, you can spray it on there, but it's probably going to be messy and maybe a tad bit uncomfortable. The best option in that case is to take a sterile piece of gauze sponge. You can use a folded up paper towel, but it's better to use something sterile. Saturate it with the saline, lay it against the piercing area, and let it stay in contact for about 5 minutes. In both cases, like I said, air dry, or you can pat it dry. The other thing I suggest doing is once a day, jump in the shower. You know, when you're taking a normal shower, get done with your shower, pull your hair and everything out of the way, and let the water flow over the piercing area for about 30 seconds to a minute. What we're doing with these two things, the saline and the rinsing in the shower, is we're removing that hardened discharge, often referred to as crusties, from the jewelry. The reason why we want it off there is when the jewelry shifts or moves, it can agitate it, which doesn't feel very good, and we need to make additional room for additional discharge. So if you feel like there's an obsessive amount of it or it's just not coming off, I highly suggest going to see your piercer and having them take a look at it and asking them to clean it for you. There might be another issue going on, and also I don't want you to be running to the medicine cabinet and pulling out everything tipped in cotton or with a sharp point and start digging around in there. You're probably going to cause issues. One of the most common problems I see with piercings is people using Q-tips on them. Q-tips are not clean. They are not, that cotton is loose fitting. It can catch on the jewelry and actually start wrapping around the jewelry and dig in there and create this kind of circular donut of pus and blood. It's really great to have on there. Just stay away from the Q-tips. Swelling can last anywhere from 3 to 5 days. You can reduce swelling by sleeping with your head elevated above your heart. That will help reduce it. If you've never had any problems with anti-inflammatories, you can take them. I can't tell you to take like ibuprofen. However, if you've never had any problems with it, shouldn't be an issue. If you're unsure, talk to your doctor. The biggest thing that's going to help with swelling is avoiding any contact whatsoever, meaning don't touch it, don't play with it, don't spin it, leave it alone. Also, do not sleep on it. If you have to sleep on that side, you need to figure out a way to elevate it off the bed. Most common way to do that is to get one of those U-shaped travel pillows and then put a clean sock on it every night and sleep with your ear inside, the piercing's inside and elevated off the bed inside that little hole in the middle. Practice cross-contamination prevention. This is common sense stuff. Wash your hands before you handle it. No oral contact. No exchanging of bodily fluids. Keeping your environment clean. Clothing, bedding, towels. Do not submerge the piercings in bodies of water you can't control the quality of, which is everything but your own clean bathtub. No swimming. Keep pets away from it. Don't let them sleep in the bed with you, especially those smaller animals like to sleep up by your face and decide whether or not you're dead and if it's time to eat you yet. They always go for the cheeks because it's the softest meat. I'm sorry. Avoid contact with unclean objects. Culprits with this would be things like telephones, over-the-ear headphones, hats, helmets. Anything that comes in contact with the area either needs to be avoided or needs to be cleaned on a regular basis. Do not spin it. Do not rotate it. Do not move it. Leave it alone. Obsessive contact of piercings is going to lead to more swelling and infection. That's the two big things it's going to cause. It's not going to do any beneficial things at all. Leave it alone. First 3 to 5 days, it's not uncommon to notice maybe some slight bleeding, redness, discolorization, heat, tenderness of touch, inflammation, of course, swelling. If that occurs during that period of time, it's probably normal. If it appears later in the healing process, may not be normal. See your piercer or seek medical advice. One final thing is both of these piercings can have a tendency to be great, and then you put the shorter post in, and then suddenly it flares up again. You may go through numerous jewelry changes. Do hold on to your old jewelry. Make sure that your piercer is the one that's changing, or you have the proper tools to do it. But don't be surprised if that conch that's going beautifully, all of a sudden out of the blue, you wake up one morning and it's 3 times its normal size and bleeding. That means you probably slept on it, and now you got to put that longer post back in. You do not want to create a situation where the post is too small, where it's too small because of swelling, and it's swelling because the jewelry is too small. The only way you can correct that is putting a longer post in. Now let's talk about jewelry. Jewelry should be left in at all times during the healing process. After the piercing is healed, you can take it out and replace it with another piece. However, you do want to leave something in it at all times indefinitely, meaning off and on, at least 2 to 3 years. Even at that point, you should understand anytime you remove the jewelry and leave it out for an extended period of time, your body's going to more than likely close the piercing. Downsizing should be done in roughly about anywhere from 4 to 8 weeks, and most people say 6 to 8. I always say it's this way. Definitely in 6 to 8 weeks, but if before that 6-week mark you start catching it on hair and it starts moving around a lot and you're not experiencing swelling, there's no reason to have that longer post in there, and it's probably going to increase the likelihood of issues, meaning it's going to be more likely to get caught on things. So come in and get it changed sooner. In my opinion, the best option for these is flat back, threaded or threadless labret studs. Personally, I like threadless. If it is threaded, you do need to check the end on a regular basis. I usually suggest weekly to make sure it's on there tight. They tend to come unscrewed at the worst possible time and land in the most disgusting thing near you. With threadless, it's my experience that if they're bent correctly, the amount of force it takes to rip them out is probably equivalent to what it would take to cause a massive amount of trauma to the piercing. So they tend to be a little bit secure at points when it comes to ear work anyway. Basically check your ends, or if it's threadless, leave them alone. Now, if you have any medical issues or what have you, and you're having to go in and take jewelry out and everything else, you can wear glass retainers in these piercings to keep them open. I do not suggest plastic, acrylic, or any of that other stuff, mainly because I know what glass is made out of. I don't know what all that plastic stuff is made out of. Let's talk about living with the piercing. As I mentioned earlier, if you have threaded jewelry, you need to check the ends on a regular basis. Make sure they're on there tight. You want to leave the jewelry in at all times, only taking out to replace. Regardless of how long you've had them, there's really no reason to take the jewelry out all the time. I don't understand that. This jewelry is designed to be in the body for a long period of time. There's no reason to be messing with it. If you notice swelling or discomfort, even after the piercing is healed, you may need to consult your piercer and have a larger piece of jewelry put in. These piercings are not going to enjoy trauma even after they heal. It is hard metal through soft tissue, and if it gets yanked or pulled on, it's not going to feel great, and it can cause them to kind of act up and be grumpy again. Now let's talk about what happens if you decide you don't want the piercing anymore. You just want to abandon it or abandon them. If the piercing is healthy, no signs of infection or other problem, if it's healing or not healing, it shouldn't be a problem to remove the jewelry and just let the piercings close. Just keep an eye on them. Treat them like any other wound that you would have on your body. If there are signs of infection or other problems, always consult your piercer or medical professional before removing the jewelry. The worst case scenario is that you're going to end up trapping the infected tissues and fluids inside the body and then have to have that lanced and drained. It's going to definitely need medical attention. So when in doubt, even if everything looks right and you're just nervous, go see your piercer. One final thing is sebum. Sebum is a waxy cream cheese substance, has a very distinct odor to it, kind of smells like a dirty navel or belly button. Sometimes with piercings that have been abandoned, it will tend to collect in there, and then when you squeeze on it, it'll come out. First off, why are you squeezing it? I don't understand why people do that. Second off, it's completely harmless. It is what oils your hair follicles, helps with elasticity and moisturizing of your skin, and helps keep you watertight. Don't worry about it. It should wash away with normal soap and water, and that's all you need to know about that. Do you have a faux snug? What was your experience like getting them, living with them, etc.? Please share in the comments. If I didn't address something, please leave a question. I'll be happy to answer that. Till next time, here's hoping all your piercings heal with ease and without a single issue. And if you're in the Des Moines, Iowa area, I would love to see you for your piercing needs in the future. Have a good day, everybody. Take care, and we'll see you in that next video.